Today, Wednesday, this work session agenda for Wednesday, September 22nd, 2015. We can all rise for an invocation. Commissioner Garza, can you lead us in invocation?
Yes, Lord Jesus Christ, thank you for bringing us here this evening, Lord. Please bless us with the best decisions we make for our community, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Let's face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Y'all may be seated. We are here for the discussion under item number 4, discussion and possible action on the Texas Water Development Board invitation to submit applications for possible funding under the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Chief?
Ma'am, I'm filling in for the other chief, but apparently we'll pass it over to.
Who wants
for
to go
discussion.
first?
I'll go ahead. Mayor, City Commissioner, thank you for allowing us to be here on short notice. I know that we requested this meeting because the Water Development Board is really given a really tight schedule. On October 26th, the City of San Juan received 3 letters from the Texas Water Development Board. And these are the results, actually inviting the City of San Juan to submit a funding application to them for 3 different projects. And those 3 different projects were, the first one was to improve the raw water reservoir at the water treatment plant number 2. Also, to fund the construction of the lift station project that we finished designed probably over a year ago. And number 3, an application to fund the extension of the sanitary sewer system, part of the Colonias program. And these 3 particular projects were put in the intended use plan at the Water Development Board back in March of this year. All these projects, we believe that the Water Development Board asked us, or asked cities to submit applications because these projects are basically shovel-ready. A lot of the work's already been done, and they're near to go to construction. They don't have to wait for design work for that. In the intended use, in your package I provided, there's 2 intended use plans. The first one, which is a light blue, is actually the drinking water. And on that one, on the second sheet, we got those 2 projects, which is project rank 209 and project rank 210. They're ranked fairly high, but both of those projects are actually shovel-ready, ready to go for construction. Both of them are eligible for 30% loan forgiveness, very similar to the loan forgiveness we got for the water treatment plant. Loan forgiveness is just a better word the Water Development will use. Basically, it's a grant. It just sounds a little bit better to them. In the intended use plan for the clean water, which is actually sewer, which is the one in darker blue, City of San Juan actually had those 2 projects, 64 and 92, and the first one is to expand the sanitary sewer system for the Colonias. And the second one is actually to do the rehab of the lift stations. The Colonia project cost is $1.8 million, and the cost for the lift stations is $7.8 million. Moving along, first one we'll address is on your package is the one listed number 1 here, which is after the light blue in your package. That's a letter we received from the Water Development Board, basically asking the city to submit an application under the Drinking Water SRF for the raw water reservoir. And then the next sheet I have is I just like to explain to the commission that this is a copy of the project what we plan on doing. If you remember, our previous project actually funded the design of this project, part of the water treatment plant. So all the plan design, all the environmental work has already been done. So this project is ready to go to construction. If we move over to the green tab, which is the clean water projects, on the Texas Water Development Board letter with a number 2 on it, that's the lift station rehab project. That's $7.8 million. Just for some of the commissioners' information, we kind of laid out what we're doing at this particular project. That one will renovate probably 7 or 8 lift stations, but the main thing is what we do is move the sewer from the north side of San Juan to the south side. Over the years, a lot of the sewer on the north side doesn't move very quickly. There's a lot of odor issues, but also a lot of inflows and outflows and overspills of sewer on the south side, where we're trying to take the sewer from the north side through the south system. So what we're doing is basically taking all the sewer from the north side and making a dedicated lift station that's going to pump it directly to the sewer plant on the south side. So this should alleviate all the spillage that we have. I know there's a lot of issues on the lift station over here, lift station number 19, which is the one on Sam Houston. That's going to alleviate that problem. Also, when we get a lot of rain, you know, a lot of the system gets inundated, so we have a lot of spills into the streets.
Saw this past time that people were calling, it's
All that
spilling
sewer
over.
backing up.
You know, this particular project has been in the works for a number of years now. Here again, we're ready to go to construction if we can get it funded. And the third,
Let me ask you something.
okay,
If you can go back to the map,
Okay.
going from lift stations 16, 18, and 19, you would be connecting along Sam Houston Road?
yeah. And the intent there is actually redirect some of that sewer. Initially, the lift station, a lot of the sewer from lift station number 6, which was on the north side, was pumping directly into 19. Now we're really bypassing that lift station. So we're going to redirect some of the sewer from on the west side and direct it back into 19.
Okay.
Yeah. And with that, we'll try to get some of the sewer system off of this side. All this is based on a wastewater study that we did a number of years ago.
Would you be tearing up the street by doing that, or you're going alongside a
Where
road?
we tear streets down only if we have to. We don't want to tear up a street unless you absolutely have to.
That's already torn.
Right. Or make it worse, put it that way.
Right, I guess my
But-
thought is that includes whatever paving, repaving that would have to be made?
Any patchwork, whatever, would be part of that. But literally, we never like to tear up a street, even
Right.
though, because once you tear it up and put a patch, it's always be a patch, so. Invariably, and we have to, we'll have to, but we try to minimize that as much as we can. And then the last project, which is under the yellow tab, which is project number 3, that's an ongoing project. That's part of the, let me explain this a little bit. Last year or the year before, the city was funded what they call PAD money, Planning Acquisition Design, for an EDAP project. The PAD is the planning and acquisition is done. Actually, the Water Development Board is reviewing that final. The design is about 50% done. But, that's probably a month away. But this particular project will fund the construction of that project. We're eligible, this project, we're 30%, we could receive 30% loan forgiveness money. It depends on everybody else's application. Now, the alternative is we wait to go through the EDAP project. But, talking to Medea at the Water Development Board, the EDAP project is not funded. The state legislators did not fund the EDAP this past year, and there's a lot of EDAP projects out there. Now, we could wait to get it funded under the EDAP, which would be a 50%. However, it may be 2 years from now before that would happen. But if we go through the Clean Water SRF, there's a possibility that we get 30% loan forgiveness. No guarantee of that, of course, but we can move this project a lot quicker if we decide to go that direction and get funding under the Clean Water SRF money. Kind of makes sense, or it'll be a quicker process if we go through the Clean Water SRF, but you could get lesser loan forgiveness or none at all through the Clean Water SRF.
The other route, we gotta wait 2 years.
There's a lot of projects that still haven't been funded that that the Water Development Board has received funding for, applications for, and they just stacked up. And there's quite a few projects that are quite large, one here in the valley for EDAP money. It's going to gobble up a lot of the money. But we aren't sure when those projects will actually be bid. The best we could hope for is those projects come under bid, or under the cost where there'll be more money available. There's no guarantee of that. And we won't know that till at least a couple of years from now. So we could wait for EDAP money, no guarantee that it would be available, or try to get Clean Water SRF money at a possible loan forgiveness of 30% and move a lot quicker.
So tell me, when we talk 2 years with the EDAP, what kind of projection would you have with this particular, through the Texas Water Development Board?
What kind of projection
Of time?
of time? Well, we think that, they also, what they tell us, they're not going to sell, and probably Chris will help me here, they're not going to sell those bonds till a year and a half from now for those monies. So by the time those projects go through and go through the bidding process to see what money will be left over, it may be 2 years from now. So, if we want to wait, that's fine, but if we want to move forward and get it funded, get the project done, I know the Colonias has been a priority project to a lot of people. Maybe we need to move forward with it,
It would still be 2 years, though.
No, if we move the Clean Water SRF, we'll make the application before September, hopefully get going by the first of the year.
Okay, so not,
Under the
not,
Clean Water-
not
yeah,
a year
under
and a
this
half.
application, yes. Under the EDAP project, it may be 2 years.
Right, that's,
Right.
so that we're
Yeah.
talking a big difference.
In all, these three applications, the reason we're here tonight is that, in the letters, if you see, they want us to submit the application by the 23rd of this month, which is a pretty tight fuse. Yeah. Put an application in it, the financial advisor, so we'll basically put the application together. This is a copy of the application we did for the water treatment plant, so there's a lot of work.
And you're gonna do 3 of them.
And if the commission chooses to move forward in submitting applications, we really need to get going, because if you choose to move forward, the next thing we would do, we need to get all the resolutions approved for the council approval, and we would hopefully do that Tuesday. That way we move forward with the application and have the resolutions ready by your meeting on Tuesday. Now, we're not advocating that we submit an application for either project, none of the projects, all the projects, but we're here to let you know that we're ready to submit the applications if the commission decides to move forward with those. We've been very fortunate in the past of receiving loan forgiveness money from the Water Development Board. That's how we're building our water treatment plant. Well, not today anyway, but we also got 30% on the line work from the Water Development Board. So we've done well over the past receiving loan forgiveness money. Here again, we're competing against projects statewide. It's not only the valley. And there's other projects that maybe merit more money than ours. We're not sure. We don't know how many applications. I know, my understanding, there's only 21 projects that have been asked to submit invitations submit an application under the Drinking Water SRF. Only 21, and I don't know how much money is available for loan forgiveness, but if we don't try, we'll never get it. You can always move forward in an application, and at some point in time decide not to do it. But it is a lot of work to get these things done. But this is something that we can take advantage of. Now, we wait till after September 23rd. Chances are there is no more loan forgiveness money. There probably wouldn't be any more loan forgiveness money, and we could submit an application. But, why wait till then? Try to take advantage of the time we have. We think, and we were talking about this, that a lot of cities may not be able to react so quickly, because September 23rd is 3 weeks. Maybe a lot of people won't submit their applications or won't meet the deadlines. We're very confident that we can, because we submitted several already to the Water Development Board. And there's a lot of history. Chris has got the information from the other applications. You got all the financial information, so we can move forward. But this decision is yours. Now, which ones are the best candidates? Which ones are high priority? I think all three need to be done. Now, which applications we want to submit would be up to you.
I guess my answer would come, what can we afford? That's really what determines how much we can take on.
If Sandra will help us, we can put it on the on the screen, and certainly. Mayor, members of the City Commission, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Vela with First Southwest Financial Advisors to the City of San Juan. I'd like to start with summarizing the last 5 years of revenues and expenditures in the Water and Sewer Fund. I think it's important that each one of you understand the revenues and also understand what has been happening as a phenomena of weather and the relationship between the phenomena of weather, of rain, and your revenue stream, because there is an impact. Now, normally what we, in this business, in the water and sewer business, and Mayor, I know that you've been through this before, but I'm trying to, very well. The way we calculate the ability to issue debt is we take the total revenues, both from an operational standpoint and a non-operational standpoint. Non-operational would mean like interest income, other sources of money, but not necessarily for rates based on water and sewer, tapping fees, things of that nature. So we get the total revenues, we deduct the operational maintenance expenses, not including capital outlay, under accounting terms, depreciation, or debt service. So strictly what it takes to operate and maintain the system. And the result is what they call net revenues, is what is pledged to the Water Development Board as a security on the debt. So whatever those revenues are is the security to them. And then normally you have covenanted, by that I mean you have promised in documents of prior debt that you will maintain 1.25 coverage between the net revenues and the debt of average annual. Now there's a problem in calculating, in doing debt that way, because when you do average annual and you have, for example, long-term debt over 30 years, you may have high payments for a number of years and then low payments, and you average it out, and all of a sudden you have a low number that makes it work for debt purposes, but from a cash flow standpoint, it may be a little short, so we need to be careful, from that standpoint. So let's go to, with that understanding and that basic framework, let's go to fiscal year 10, and you can see from fiscal year 10 that your charges for service for both water and sewer were $4,676,000. Income was 45, and other was 22. This is your non-operational income, and this is your operating income right there. And your expenses were salaries, employees, professional technical services, et cetera, et cetera. So the total was, I believe, $3 million, and the difference was $1,260,000. These are your net revenues available for debt service. Okay? And you can see that the revenues grew the operational revenues grew from 10 to 11, pretty much stayed the same, and what happened in 14? We dropped a little bit, about $200,000. And that is probably evident as a result of, or we can attribute that to the rain. And the thing about rain is that it keeps you from water, but it also keeps you from charging sewer, because the sewer bill is calculated as a percentage of the water that's consumed. So it has a double whammy on both sides. Going back to the expenses, you can see your expenses grew some. This pretty much stayed the same. That pretty much stayed the same. So your revenues actually went down a little bit, about $100,000 from one year to the other. But also remember that there were some positions that you had not filled. So that may account for the less of expenses. But your net revenues dropped from this number to this number. Now, one of the things that we need to verify is this number right here. I need to isolate what that number, that's an unusually high number to be there, and it doesn't flow. So this number may be a little bit overestimated.
Would that be the money we got from the liner, the settlement?
Well, if that's the case, it shouldn't be there,
I sense that that's what that is.
because that's a one-time revenue, and we can't count on it again.
Out,
Okay?
because we paid, but it was a one-time, but it was it was a settlement.
And that's fine, but I guess what I'm saying is, we should not count it. And I asked my analyst to look into it, and he was, but I don't know if he was able to get the detail from the audit. But this is a little flag here, but we were hovering this area here, okay? So really, the loss is somewhere between here and here, the real loss, okay? Now, are there any questions on the operating statement, or what drives it, or how debt is calculated, or anything of that nature? Okay? Then we'll move on over to the cash flow. Now, this column here is the net revenues that were, I'm sorry, the operating revenues, and then the next column is the expenses, and these are your net revenues here. And you have those as well in front of you. And the net revenues, again, we held constant from day one till the end. And then we have the existing senior lien water and sewer debt. And then we have the junior lien. And then we have the water debt that is supported from with a tax pledge, Mayor. You remember that we did last year those COs for that, that line that the engineers recommended for raw water to the raw water reservoir? Okay, that's pretty much what that amounts to, but it's still debt that we're paying for, not out of taxes, but out of revenues, but supported with a tax pledge to lower your interest cost in the market, because that was not a Water Development Board deal. Okay? And of course, your total water and sewer debt would be this column right here. And then the next in the block is the capacity. Okay? Now that's at 100% capacity. And this is based, if you look at your debt service, look at your total existing water and sewer. When I say average annual, you see how you got those big payments and then you got the smaller payments? That's going to skew that average number, you know, for calculation of debt. So if we look at the assumptions at the very bottom, it says represents audited financials for fiscal year 14. And this brings us up to another point. We're finishing 15. And we also had another wet year. So how quickly we can get those numbers, the mayor and the city manager, and at a meeting that we had prior, you recall that we suggested that we need to move up on the delivery of the audits, maybe till mid-March, if at all possible. I think that that was the consensus that we arrived at, so that we can, how should I say, comply with a lot of the disclosures and how should I say, new trends that are being required in the industry, if you will. We need to kind of see if we can get all of that tied up a little faster. Now, so these are with numbers, quite frankly, that are a year old, and the question then becomes one, what's going to happen? I don't know what the statistics are in terms of rainfall between 14 and the period of time that it rained or versa, but I would suspect that, and I'm venturing a guess here, this is not a empirical data by any means, that we're going to see another drop in revenues of some sort. How should I say, significant? That's hard to say at this time, unless the Mr. Garza and Mr. Garza, the CFO and the auditor, were able to give us some very good preliminary unaudited numbers to go forward with. But quite frankly, right now, I don't think we need them. I think we can make a decision that for application purposes that we can go forward with. So going on to the next column, you can see what you qualify for, and then you have the total new debt service. And then you can see what the coverage is on the total debt service. And then you have the coverage on the senior and on the junior. But look at the right-hand column right here. You notice that you have very little left because most of it is going into debt. Because the total debt service, if you compare the total debt service to your net revenues, they're almost one and the same. Okay? Any difference between the debts, the net revenues and the total debt service is going to be a surplus, okay, which you have put aside. So I'm thinking that for our purposes, there's two large projects in your application, I mean, in the funded ones. Any combination of the small one and one of the large one would work, that we could go, for, based on whatever you all determine the priorities are.
And let me ask you for, as we work, if, once we have an idea, we make a commitment, because we've always depended on a very healthy fund, and if it's reducing as far as the surplus cash flow to such a low level, well, we don't have the same kind of restrictions on those funds as we do on our unrestricted fund for the just in case, for those emergencies.
That's a very good question, Mayor, and I think it's a question that you need to ask Mr. Garza, the CFO, and your auditor, to do that calculation for you in terms of what we would call unassigned, unrestricted, unreserved fund balance. Dollars that you can actually allocate, that you have. Now, there's a lot of rules here that you may want, a lot of metrics that you can follow from a rating standpoint. But I think it's important that this commission understand that the Water and Sewer Fund is a very important fund because people need water, and they also need to have sanitary services at all times. So it's prudent to maintain a sizable amount of money in your fund balance to be able to fund emergencies that may come. As one, some of us that are old enough to remember hurricanes and things of those natures, there's a lot of things that can happen under the category of acts of God, force majeure, if you will. And it's important that you come to a decision as a board, as a city commission, how much money do you want to keep? Do you want to keep 3 months, 6 months, a year? And the more you keep, obviously, the safer you are, because it's going to be a bigger amount of money. And you say, a year of what? A year of expenses, or 9 months of expenses. And we can certainly provide metrics for you, for your population, and for the type of city here that the city of San Juan is comparable in trying to maintain a certain level of rating, if you will, because that's going to coincide directly with that. But
And those funds, I'm thinking, if we're not, for example, we have our reserve or unrestricted for the general fund, and the two enterprise funds, we typically have not thought about those because they've always been very healthy. They've always, maintained a good level. At this point, we're kind of getting to the very edge now.
Yes.
So would it be safe to say that if we were to commit, then basically whatever we have right now would be the point that it would stay for a while? Would that not be the case?
that would be the case.
For how long, if we look at the numbers
That would depend on the growth of your accounts.
okay,
And of course, future rate increases as they may be needed, if needed.
right.
And, but I think that let's just take a couple of the projects for example. If you take, the,
The first-time sewer connections,
that's what, about $1.8 million?
yes, and the lift station. The lift station is one we've been looking for years. And I think that that's one in our system. And I look at the fact that it's got some work being done along Cesar Chavez. We're about to go and expand Cesar Chavez. So it seems like doing something you know, beforehand or during would make a lot of sense. And that's like a 7.8 million, just for suggestions, and the 1.8 million for the first-time water sewer connection.
Both of the other projects are, both the drinking water and the clean water large project are, one is a 6585, Orlando?
Water treatment plant, the drinking water is 66585.
And then the clean water, the lift station is 7.9,
7.9.
Right.
okay?
And the first-time sewer is 1.8.
Yes. So any combination of those two, I think, would work. And it would be prudent, you know, that we could proceed with something like that. And of course, we also need to remember, and I didn't point this out to you because I got going in another direction, but looking at the footnotes on the cash flow sheet, on footnote number 3, look at your cost of money there at the very bottom. It's like 254. That's because this disadvantaged category that you're applying for has a subsidy. The drinking water has a subsidy of 120 off of the rating of a BAA, which is what they're using for you, and the sewer has a 155. So the sewer is obviously less expensive money. The clean water is less expensive money. Now, in terms of loan forgiveness, I couldn't venture a guess.
But one thing is, on the loan forgiveness, if you have a letter for the drinking water SRF, it says is eligible to receive loan forgiveness. The letter was written by the same person. If you move over to the letter from the clean water SRF, that statement's not in the letter. I don't know what that means, but it's not in there. It doesn't say you're eligible for loan forgiveness, even though we're eligible for 30% based on the ranking. So I don't know, it's a play on words, or it means that we're not eligible for 30% under the clean
That's the
water.
reason why I
don't
backed away
know.
from that one.
But that was just very strangely the way the two letters were written.
Yeah.
So we would take them at the face value of whatever the estimation of the cost of the project would be.
That's the way I would do it, and if you get loan forgiveness, for sure you're gonna get the rate subsidy. Okay? The next thing is, if you get loan forgiveness, so much the better. It'll just make your financials go further. Which is what has been happening here in San Juan, because Mayor, you will probably recall that when we first started, we started, I think, with what, a capacity of about $12–13 million? Yes, and we funded a lot of projects, and because we've been able to utilize, remember that, and it's important, interest cost, okay, allows you to borrow more money and your net revenues go further. That's, the lower the cost of capital, the better it is for the city. So this is the reason why we've been posturing the city into the water development program, because quite frankly, there's no better way to do this.
And I guess the comfort level is there that are, on a conservative note, if we were at the 1.6 that we looked at, as far as the trend, we kind of did a downward trend because of the rain per se. It's still a conservative look that if this next coming year is a regular year in the valley with the heat and everything, we might recuperate some of that back to put back into the fund. And then we're not touching rates. Everything is still staying the same, so we're able to afford to do that. So that makes me feel.
That's the reason why I said somewhere in the
comfortable with
vicinity of
these
about $8 million, you know, 8 to 10 million, I think would be I think either one of those would in that margin, if you will. Now, the last page, just to finish up, is the actual calculation of the additional bonds test. And your average annual is $1,089,000, and your net revenues are $1,654,000, gives you a 152 coverage. But you see what happens when you do the average? It lowers your debt service requirements from the actual debt service requirements to that number. So it allows a city like San Juan to prudently qualify for debt on a going-forward basis, but be very careful when you get to the cash flow to make sure, because we still need to fund the reserve funds, Mayor, remember. Okay? There's, one of the other securities that the city gives to the bondholder is that it maintains a sum of money equal to 1 year's payment of on hand for debt. So if you owe $600,000, you're billed up to about $600,000 in your bond reserve to have there. And that's another thing that we're going to be looking at, Mayor, is the balances in your reserve fund and seeing if there's anything else we can do with whatever debt is outstanding, kind of like what we did on the GF, on the general fund. And see if there's any other monies that we can, from a indenture standpoint, strategically free up so that the city can utilize those monies to use them for capital outlay or other lawful purposes.
Are there any questions for Mr. Vela on the financing? I know this was a lot easier than the other one. Or maybe because we've done the other one so much, so this one just kind of came easy. I want to talk about the projects, and you mentioned 3, and just because I remember talking about these for some time. I personally of the opinion that the first-time sewer connections need to happen. We've been waiting for those for quite a while, and we have about 100 and, I guess it was about 105 homes or so that we identified that have never been gotten sewer connections because of past projects that didn't qualify. I think that's extremely important to fund. And then my only thought on the other 2, and unless Mr. Cruz, you have, some kind of reliance on one that we must do, but if I look at the designs that you've provided, just because we are going to do major work on Cesar Chavez soon, if that project along that I know that's been waiting for quite a while, all those lift stations, if that could be done and it would alleviate some of the problems, it would also alleviate what's over at the fire station as well, all that stench and smell that happens in so many of our neighborhoods that we've done filters and those things.
The problem is that sewer just staying on that part of town so long. We're gonna get it out there a lot quicker, so it would solve the odor issues.
And that affects so many of our, so many of our neighborhoods, and some very particular that they have lived with that kind of conditions. And because it goes along that road, I would definitely suggest that we do the lift stations and the first-time sewer connections as the projects. Now, looking at the project of the water reservoir, what would happen with that? How long can we?
We actually, we have a bad reservoir there. It's a lot of history back then. I think everybody knows that it's been very hard to treat water out of the reservoir because that reservoir people may know, used to be a borrow pit for the expressway when they built the expressway back in the 50s. It's too deep, so we're mixing water, salt water with brackish water, with fresh water, and it makes it very hard to treat the water. But what we've done is that reservoir needs to be brought up in elevation. It's the only way it's going to work. We got to get that out of the groundwater. But what we've done, if we have another project that's actually under construction now, the only way to get this water, this reservoir, and take it, isolate it off the system, we have to have another system to pump water. So right now, we actually have a project that's going to pump water from the other reservoir to the water treatment plant while we reconstruct the reservoir. Of course, that's being done now. But at some point in time, that plant needs a reservoir, needs a reliability, and that will be your major water treatment plant, and that reservoir needs to be in place. Now, is it critical? We're working with it. We added more reliability by putting the other reservoir, but we're still relying on a pump station and a bunch of pipe to get water to that reservoir. You reduce the risk of not having water by storing the water at the plant. So there's always going to be an inherent risk by not having that reservoir. Now, what's more important? Having water is certainly more important, but also moving sewer is more important. So it's kind of, what do you do? But I think we probably, once we get this reservoir and have the ability to pump from one reservoir to the next, certainly increases the reliability of that plant.
How much time, when you look at by the time that water plant expansion gets completed, what was the time frame that we were looking at? Was it simultaneous working on the reservoir itself, or?
Well, hopefully, we would have to have the water treatment plant completed, of course. We have to have the transfer line completed, but the transfer line is completed, it'll be completed within a couple of months, so. It's one of those things that it needs to be done. We need to have that reliability, have a reservoir or the water treatment plant. But if it's not done, we continue to use that reservoir, but we add reliability to it. So we could live a little longer with it, but there's still inherent risks about doing it the way, by not having that reservoir really implemented in actually storing water. Like right now, they kind of put a little bit of water and kind of drain it, put a little bit of water, and they're working with it. But, it just gets a little bit, for some reason, the irrigation district hadn't happened, but it could happen, that they cut you off, something happens to their system or whatever.
Well, that's why we did that
You know,
connector.
yeah, that's gonna help there, yeah. But, they're both important, so.
I think we were trying to save the water back when, that's why we ended up, because of the droughts and not finding ourselves short on that. Geez, that's something well, my thought is, I just changed my thought. I mean, then maybe that water needs to be prioritized. Because I remember the only reason we ended up doing the the backup for us for water supply was because we were looking at a shortage coming through, and should that come,
At
we
that
don't
time, we
want to
looked
be
at the
found
price, we were going through a drought. Well, we're not going through a drought
drought
now.
anymore.
But we could again, no telling, Droughts are good if you're selling water, but droughts are not good, if you have issues with your water treatment plant,
How much is the water treatment plant?
The cost of the water
Yeah,
treatment,
uh-huh.
8 point,
No, I'm sorry, the reservoir?
what was it, 6.58, something like that.
Maybe we should do that.
Wish we can do them all together.
Wish we could.
Yeah, but
The only thing would be if we were able to resolve our issues with that water tower anytime soon, there might be some monies that might become available if we come out favorably. That maybe we can get an update at the next city commission meeting, see where that litigation is at. It was kind of soon. So maybe we can have, it might be that we may not do it in this round with the lift stations, but it seems like it would be on the same side of the funds on the same side of the water tower that we could,
Everything's got a pro and con, what's a pro? Well, I think there's maybe a better chance of getting loan forgiveness on the drinking water side than the clean water. I'm assuming that, but the way the letters are written, I'm not absolutely sure. That's one pro, but the other thing is that, we really need the sewer system too. It's been worked on, it's been shelved for the last, 3 or 4 years, because design's been done. And then we don't know, we may get a loan forgiveness and it gives the ability to do more, later on,
I definitely want to do the first-time sewer connections, and I suppose then, with what you've stated, getting that water reservoir, getting that whole area completed at once, just so we have everything when it comes to providing, should something ever happen in the future and we're not ready, I wouldn't want to see that. Sewer, we can continue looking.
We feel a little bit better that we've added reliability to that
Yeah,
plant.
me too.
Because without that, it would be very, very difficult. Because once you put that reservoir out of commission to repair it, you're relying on that pipeline coming from one reservoir to the other, and that's it. And could that go back? Well, we don't know. A contractor could dig up the line any day, working out there. We don't have the stored water at the site,
Your thoughts on that? And plus, if we do the water, we're committing to less debt anyway. And then I just do want to find a way to pursue that lift station that maybe in the future. If we can get something coming through, we might be able to attack that project. Either, it would have to be a whole phase, would it be in phases? It has to be all at once?
Well, it could be restructured at a later time. Now, it's all one big project now, but, you know, later on, it could be restructured, and you may want to build your larger lift station and then add to it as you go along.
If we look at, okay, then let me just look at your design for along Cesar and looking at our timeframes, because that just, I would hate to be told that we're gonna incur expense because we're gonna have to, we're expanding into a 5-lane on Cesar Chavez. And you, when I saw your drawings, your rendition about where that's flowing through, you are going through right along the roadway. Is that something, though, that you would, at this point, once that design is
You
being
know,
made?
It's very tight. Our design's very tight on Cesar Chavez, but I assume if they're gonna expand Cesar Chavez to a 5-lane road or
Yes.
whatever, they're gonna acquire right-of-way.
Okay,
And when you acquire right-of-way, we make sure we acquire enough right-of-way to actually put our lines in. You know, I hate to put it in now, and then they acquire right-of-way and your line ends up in the middle of the street.
so you'll be able,
Which
though,
is not very good.
you'll be
because-
able to communicate, though, that as
Right.
as they're working through the designs, would you have feedback as to this project that we want to do in the future?
Right, actually, I would think that'd be the best way to do it, is actually wait to see where the right-of-way is gonna be, because we hate to go back and put a line, and all of a sudden we're having to move a line because the right-of-way is moved one direction and we end up under the road, or some other issue that may happen. You know, let them get the right-of-way, and then we put the line where it needs to be within that right-of-way.
And the right-of-way that needs to be acquired, is that something that, if it were to change, that we would have to acquire it as a city, or it's just something that we say, we're gonna have we're gonna need an easement here, we're gonna have to put our pipes through here, our lines through here? How does that gonna work?
Well, I assume the first thing they do, the design engineer that's
Right.
actually doing it is gonna go out and acquire the right-of-way. And then I think, once we do that, that's established, and then we know where the line needs to be. You know, and you're right, I think we need to wait to put that line after we get the right-of-way, because it's gonna end up in the wrong place, or chances are it's gonna end up in the wrong place. But we don't know the right-of-way is going to the north, or east, or the west, or whatever, you know.
So I guess then what it would be real prudent to do is to keep on top of that when that study starts taking place, that we be at the table so that they are aware of a project we want to bring.
And then put the line in once the right-of-way is acquired. Even though
Right.
the roadway may not be there, but the right-of-way is there. We know where the road's gonna go.
And then
we're just
gonna have to continue
with Right.
filters at those
Yeah.
places. Did we do a filter again at your,
No, ma'am.
no? Did we do a budget for the filters, Ramiro? We talked about it so that we can help our residents who are really,
You talking about the pellets or?
no,
It was a pump, I think, or filter, yeah.
they were excellent.
Mayor, we've been working on odor control. Actually, we've worked on some projects for the McAllen Public Utility. Actually, we looked at odor control, we put units in for odor control. Maybe you need to look at a better odor control for those stations, and they're really not that expensive. But I know that on previous utility directors, they looked at putting things that really wasn't working. You really need to filter that air.
There was something that Mr. Olvera put that worked beautifully for about 6 months, you'd say?
I don't. Pretty much a little over 6 months. That worked.
It was excellent.
yeah.
What was it?
It was some type of pump, wasn't it, Ramiro? Or a filter? Some type of, yeah. Filtration system. It was but there was times that you could tell when it was actually stopped working, because it would either trip the breaker or something, that they had to go back out there and reset it. But as soon as it would stop working, you could get, and it would start, you could tell the difference. Especially when we get the northerns, I mean, that goes straight into the fire station, all the stench from but it worked for a good 6 months. Recently, it hasn't, because been getting the smell.
Yeah, well,
Then we
you
just
know,
have to continue
a
that.
lot of towns have issues with odor control, and they do put odor control devices at their stations.
Then maybe, while it's not what is on the agenda, but because it talks about the consequences of picking one over the other, that maybe the conversation, if you want to share later with Mr. Ramirez, what are some of those that you're finding and cost-wise, so that we can definitely implement and,
There's a lot of systems
problem
out there for odor
areas.
control. Some work really good, some really don't work. You
Okay.
know, a lot of them are site-specific, you know. There's a lot of mousetraps out there.
have to invest in that while we're waiting for this other project. But, and anyway, today we would take a vote as to which projects would be the ones we want to go forward with. Is that correct, for the purposes of you applying?
Right, it gives you an opportunity to go ahead and get all the resolutions prepared for Tuesday, because we have a really tight fuse on this. And we move forward quickly. I want to have 3 or 4 people that are doing that. He's already working on it, see?
So, you know, what are y'all's thoughts? That's my recommendation, based on what Mr. Cruz is sharing.
Looking at 1 and 3?
Yeah, the water and the first-time sewer connections. And are there any other questions for either Mr. Cruz or Mr. Vela? If not, is there a motion to approve those two to go forward? That'd be the water reservoir and the first-time sewer connections? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:51.